So today many people talk about mindfulness and about meditation, and it's accepted in many areas in the world as even a healthy practice that can actually contribute to one well-being physically and mentally. And if we really see prayers in religions, and our topic is about Islam today, so if we look at the Islamic prayer, we can see a lot of similarity between it and the yoga practice, with a little additions, and maybe some yoga has more movement than the Islamic prayer, but they both share the same concept to take us out of the daily activities and to help us to sit with that which is holy, and to sit to quiet our mind and quiet our activities and regain that sense of peace and guidance or enlightenment. So some Sufi teachers actually have shown that similarities in specific ways, such as Sheikh Hakim Mu'aynuddin Chisti and Sheikh Kabir Helmaniski. They both spoke about the similarities in specific ways. For example, the standing position that the Muslim stand and say Allahu Akbar, God is the greatest, in the beginning of the prayer of each of the obligatory 5 prayers. It is similar to what the Namaste or the mountain pose in yoga, where you stand firm to have this physical balance, and it ease the nervous system and straighten the back, and it improve your posture in general. That is the outer expression of it, and it actually, according to the yogis, it align our chakras, and some Sufis agree with that too, and they call the chakras al-lata'if, which are some subtle faculties within the human being. But you can add to the prayer in Islam the sound, which I know some yoga people who practice yoga can add that too. But the Quran is very specific about, or in Islam it is very specific what we recite during the prayer. To add the power of sound with the elongation of the vowels that exist in Arabic language, and the way it is chanted, it actually adds more additional physical and spiritual benefits, because this sound vibration has an effect on the body. Actually, recent studies had shown that sound affects anything material. Sound affects anything and rearrange the molecules, and that is proven now and well known. So sound has a power. Holy chanting then has a power, because its message is positive. Like when we stand in prayer and we say, guide us to the straight path, it's a pursuit of enlightenment, illumination of the mental capacity and consciousness and awareness, in order to find answers to the questions that life poses to us and the challenges we face in daily life. So the elongation of the vowels give us that breathing. So it also has a physical quality to it, because it strengthens the lungs. It expands the lungs and the heart. It stimulates the heart. It affects the adrenal glands, and it purifies the system. So it has that benefit, but it also has the mental effect. the spiritual effect. Because if we do it with focus and we listen to the sacred chanting and the words that guide us, it can actually affect our mental state, and mental state affect health as well. So that is very important to add the recitation with the performance of salat. Sometimes we add it loud, sometimes we add it silently. And as we talked, the loud voice has a physical effect, but the silent voice within you, which is your own thought, actually has a greater effect. So that's why the prayer is a combination of some loud recitation and some silent recitation. So you can have the benefit of both the outer, the physical, and you can have a greater on the mental and the inner dimension. Actually, recent studies showed that the voice of oneself is the most effective, is the most powerful on the cellular level. So it is better to recite it with your own voice rather than hearing even someone reciting it. So for example, when people are led in meditation or in yoga practice, usually someone instructs them in a soft, calm, peaceful voice to sit and breathe and slow and visualize something beautiful. But when we recite the Quran, it is similar, because the Quran always put that visual metaphors before our eyes. And if one recites it with that soft, calm, peaceful voice to oneself, loudly and silently, then we'll gain the fruits of it, which is the mental state of focus and awareness and peace, and then illumination, which brings divine guidance. So we talked about the first standing position, that the Muslims stand and say Allahu Akbar, and that is similar to the mountain pose or the Namaste. Then the second motion in the Islamic prayer is called the ruku' or bowing, which is similar to Ardha Attanasana, and it stretches the muscles, especially of the lower back and the torso and the calves, the sides, and the blood is pumped in these areas, and so it tones the muscles of the stomach, of the abdomen, and the kidney. These are some of the physical effects. But the mental effects and the spiritual effects are more important, because bowing is to bow to the divine will. And the divine will is what brings for you what is before you, the experience you are experiencing currently in life. And that, when you bow to it, means you accept it, because therein there is a great treasure, there is wisdom and growth, even if it's hard. If it is actually easy and a blessing, you are thankful and you bow to it and you accept it. You're not in this infinite pursuit of illusion. You actually count your blessing and accept them. You bow, you accept, and you bow also for your hard experiences, because bowing means you're accepting that it has a wisdom, it has a purpose, it is for your own good. And when that illumination and guidance come, you start to see the lessons behind it. You start to develop the divine qualities, the godly qualities, such as forgiveness, endurance, patience, resilience, strength, compassion, love, justice. All of these beautiful qualities, when you embrace it and you totally experience it, then you reach your full capacity as a human being and in the image of God. And that brings the sense of fulfillment, of accomplishment, and a sense of nearness to the divine, and aware of the divine as being aware of the divine qualities within yourself. And that also helps you to see these divine qualities within others and within the whole creation, actually. So it has that mental meaning as well, or spiritual meaning. And then after we bow, we stand again, and then we prostrate. And the prostration is one of the important position or posture in the salah, and it's called sujood, equivalent to what in yoga called balasana. And sujood in Arabic, or prostration, is the most important motion. Physically speaking, it makes the heart lower than the brain, and so the brain comes lower than the heart, and so the whole blood flow reaches this area, which helps increase the memory, the focus, the awareness, and some researchers said it can reduce high blood pressure. It increases the elasticity of the joints and alleviates stress and anxiety and fatigue. And it also works the stomach muscles. It works the other muscles, the leg muscles, and so forth. So this is some of the physical benefits of the yoga position, which also exists in the salat or the Islamic prayer. But again, prostration means you return to it because it simulates the position, the child position or the embryo position in the womb. So by prostrating, it means we are returning to that cosmic womb, to that divine womb, which is compassion, because rahma, compassion or mercy in Arabic language, is a derivative from the adjective ar-Rahim, or the divine quality of ar-Rahim, ar-Rahman, the universally compassionate, the singularly merciful. So when we prostrate, we are returning to that womb of mercy, to that womb of compassion. So we can feel the divine compassion surrounding us, just as it did when we were embryos within the womb of our mothers. When we were there, we were helpless. We didn't have mouths to eat. We didn't have hands to get things done or feet to walk. We developed all of that. We didn't have to earn our provision. It came to us. Then we learned to do these things, but it is all as a gift. And just as it was given as a gift for us when we were in the womb, we trust that it will continue to shower upon us as a gift, a divine gift, because the divine mercy encompasses everything, as is said in the Quran. So when the divine womb encompasses everything, that means we feel protected, we feel the forgiveness, we feel will be taken care of. We have that trust to rely on, which is actually a greater psychological comfort, psychologically comforting, and it puts our mental state at ease, at peace. And at the same time, it brings also our compassion for others. The guidance and the peaceful feeling we receive will eventually project outwardly. So it has that. Besides, we also recite some silent, powerful words during the sujood or prostration, which again has a greater effect on our psychological state, mental state, and physical state. And the other motion in the prayer is called ruku, is called julus. Julus is sitting down between the two prostration or at the end of the prayer. And this is actually resembling the yoga position that is called Varshasana. And people said it aids detoxifying the liver, it stimulates the actions of the intestine motions, and it assists the stomach also, and the varicose veins and joint pains, and it increases flexibility of the body. So these are some of the physical benefits of julus, or sitting down, settling. But the spiritual aspect of it is also greater for a Muslim or a Sufi devotee, because it means when you sit here in that position, you are actually greeting the divine, and you're greeting the prophets, you're greeting the whole humanity and creation. And so this is where you can feel sitting with the divine. It is sitting and settling with in the divine presence, where you feel again the peace, the guidance comes to you. And this again has the greater mental and physical and psychological effects on our beings. So yoga maybe has more postures that does not exist in the Islamic prayer. So the Islamic prayer could be considered some of the basic motions, which makes it accessible to everyone, because with the yoga, some of the positions could be challenging for some people. So some people also, they have levels in yoga. So some people cannot reach the higher levels. As for Islamic prayers, it is made obligatory for everyone actually, which means it's accessible, it's easy to do. And as I say that, I also don't want the people who pray sitting to feel bad. I myself have some back problems and sometimes vertigo too, so I can't really prostrate. But this is when you trust that the spiritual and the mental position that you take of prostration, or sitting with the divine, or standing before the divine, surrendering to the divine, it's all a mental, spiritual, psychological state of being, which is more powerful than the physical, and it still affects the physical. It is not the other way around, that the physical will affect that. Because look, many people do the 5 prayers, many people do the yoga, but it might not be effective because they only do the physical motions without involving the mental, the spiritual, and the heart, the feeling. If they don't involve that, then it is only motions, and it might affect the physical to some extent, but they will not get the greater benefit. So similarly, there are some Muslims might be pray. Me, myself, if I pray anyone, when we pray without focus, yes, we might get some physical benefit from the motions, but then it will never actually affect our spiritual, because it is the spiritual that affects the body. The spiritual is more powerful than the physical, from which everything in creation comes. It comes from the energy. The non-material affects the material. It is not the other way around. But sometimes when we focus only on the physical material level, we feel that it is the most powerful, but it cannot benefit us in the spiritual. And so we still feel restless, or we still feel not peaceful, we still feel lack of knowledge, or lack of guidance, lack of enlightenment. But if we do this practice with focus, with heartfelt feelings, and with awareness, and with yearning, a desire, a pursuit, then we can gain the mental and the psychological, the spiritual benefit of it, as well as the physical. So for people who cannot really do the motions, they will still actually benefit the same. It actually can help also the physical. So this presentation, or this, is not to actually promote one is better than the other, but to show the similarities. All those spiritual people of wisdom, the prophets who came to different areas in the world, have taught these practices that the people needed to help them again to gain the guidance, to gain the peace, to calm their mind, to illuminate their consciousness and the awareness, so they can gain knowledge and can be open to gain more knowledge. So they came for the same purpose. And some people can actually practice the silence meditation and benefit from it. For others, that could be really difficult. And this is when the prayer comes with the holy recitation of sacred chanting and holy divine words to actually aid them to focus. It is meant to aid people to focus and to become more aware by contemplating the metaphors or contemplating the sound, listening to the sound. It also quiets the mind. So that is why there are some prayers silent, some prayers are loud. So we can see how the similarities exist in all religion, whether we talk about clothes or we talk about meditation and yoga and some practices. We can see the similarities, then focusing on the differences and which is superior than which. And we can respect one another's choice if we try to understand one another. And that is the message of Islam and the message of all religion. If Allah, as the Quran says, wants to create all of us the same, He would have done so. But He created us with diversity and gave each one their way of guidance and their way of reaching them. And when we see things happening in any culture or country, rather than relating it to the religion right away, we need to understand that the religion is the ideal, but people usually does not reach that ideal. People do not reach that ideal. Sometimes they fall short of the ideal. It is due to people's own misunderstanding, misuse, love of power, lower desires, and so forth. And when we do that, then we will not generalize our judgment about a culture or about a religion, but we will try to look at each individual as individual. What are their actions? Why they do what they do? What is the meaning of their choices? And as long as it does not cause harm to anyone else, we should respect that. And this is the message of Islam. This is the message of peace and love and mercy and justice and freedom for all. So the Quran speaks about many prophets related to the Abrahamic religion, and we know the similarities. There is Prophet Jesus, alayhi salam, Moses, and Abraham, alayhi salam. But it also mentions there are prophets that came to other nations that are not mentioned in the Quran. The Quran itself testifies that God had sent other prophets to other nations, but did not actually mention the name of those prophets. So rather than rushing to judge that some practices or something is not really originally divine, we can just try to understand and respect other people's choices. And similarly, we ask people to see Islam as what it is, the beauty that it has, and how it helps billions of people around the world, and not to judge the misconduct of some people as it is Islam itself promoting that.